I'm breathing underwater, I'm weightless through space. I'm soaring like an eagle all over this place. Creatures most will never see are waiting there to look at me, and all I gotta do is breathe underwater. I suppose the first thing I need to talk about is the word Leviathan. It comes from the Bible, specifically 6 places in the Old Testament. It's a Hebrew word, and a lot of scholarship has been done on it. Some passages seem to describe it as the personification of chaos, the enemy of the Hebrew god Yahweh who had to put him down and crush him. Others describe it as something like a hippo playing in the water. If we put it all together, it was some kind of big honking animal that only God could tame, assuming he wanted to. More than once, the word is used synonymously with some kind of sea monster, which only makes the mud less clear. Basically, I can summarize all that scholarship in one sentence: we don't know. Today, what it means today will eventually become obvious. From left to right, we have Dr. Anthony Sterling, his assistant Kara Sloan, and his other assistant, that guy. They're watching that pressure gauge go well into the red zone, but Dr. Sterling doesn't think it's dangerous. He says these eruptions never last long.
You'll never make a scientist, Kara. You're too cautious.
I know. Can't help being a woman.
You just heard one of the themes for this episode. Women are too emotional for science. Please note the statement of this fact does not imply agreement or acceptance. Irving just reports them, he doesn't explain them.
Parker, get your mask and lungs. I want water samples.
He doesn't have a mechanism to get them from here? He has to send the expendable one out into that in scuba gear? First, how deep are they? Second, how close to the eruption does he have to get? Third, why? And fourth, why? Our man dutifully heads out there, although I don't see him carrying anything to collect water samples in. I've talked about sawfish in this series before. They're harmless. They couldn't care less about humans. They eat fish. Sometimes they use that big saw to spear a passing fish, and sometimes they use it to dig in the sand for small crustaceans to munch on. But at its most basic, it's an antenna. It has sensors in it that detect the electrical fields put out by various fish. It's a fish finder. Some guy in a rubber wetsuit and 40 pounds of metal doesn't radiate like a fish, so this critter shouldn't pay our boy any attention, even though this particular sawfish is at least 3 times the size of the biggest one ever recorded. And since it's that big, yes, it's going to eat him. Cut to the Nelson Institute, where Kara is pleading with Admiral Nelson to bring the Seaview to their facility.
I'm sorry, Miss Sloan, but without a great deal more information, your request is impossible.
I expected you to say that, Admiral Nelson, and I understand it. We're not talking about a stranger. We're talking about Dr. Anthony Sterling.
I know that. I admired Tony when he worked here with us, and I admire him now. But do you have any idea of the number of requests we have every day for the facilities of Seaview?
It's a bit like the space telescopes. Every astronomer in the world wants to get some time on one of them, but when there's only 1 or 2, somebody has to do without. Admiral Nelson says they're all special cases, and she hasn't given him enough information to know why this one is more special than any of the others.
Excuse me a moment. Yes, what is it?
Admiral, a call for you on the video phone via Telstar. A Dr. Sterling.
He must be calling from his deep sea lab.
I put him on.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's hear his pitch.
How much would you say has been spent trying to dig a hole to pierce the Earth's mantle so that we could study the core?
Well, hundreds of millions, and you know it's of vital interest to us.
Well, I've already accomplished it.
You what?
Oh, I didn't dig it, of course, but I've discovered it. A natural fissure in the sea bottom, and it extends right down to the core.
We won't find out how he knows this, but it's enough to get the Admiral's attention. Basically, he says, we'll be right there.
I don't care what you say, Chief. I got a good look at her. And all I've got to say is, welcome aboard.
You and the skipper both, Ski. Did you see him give her the eye?
Yeah.
A lot of guys were checking her out. Karen Steele started out as a model and cover girl and was known for her beauty. Fans of the original Star Trek will recognize Eve, the leader of Mudd's women. And I have to say one thing about that. The makeup department did their best, but you couldn't make her ugly. As long as she had those eyes, she was never ugly. Cancer took her before her 57th birthday. I get so tired of having to say things like that. As I write this, 2 days ago, that damnable monster took another member of my family at a young age. I have a message for Congress. Get off your dead butts and fund research into a cure. Talk is cheap. Prove you give a flying fig. Put your money where your mouths are, so maybe someday we can stop having to lose people like Karen Steele and my niece before their time.
Come on, knock it off and play your hands.
Anti-female.
Listen, Buster, I dig a pretty chick just like the next guy, but on a ship, they're nowhere. Special attention, special quarters, special details for all hands. Forget it.
If you ask me, he's superstitious.
What do you mean superstitious?
Sharky says, who, me? Riley points out that he wears the same shirt every time they play gin.
What are you talking about? What's this got to do with superstition? I wear it for luck.
These are some old gags, but he delivers them so well you can't help laughing.
And this is the crew's mess you were asking about.
And this is the kitchen.
That's right. Only we call it the galley.
I don't see any cooks.
Well, they're not due yet for another hour.
But when they do get here, she'd like the chief to give them a special request.
Could you ask the cook if he can serve me a salt-free diet?
Salt-free.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure.
Well, I hate to be a nuisance about it, but it is important to me.
You'll see to it, won't you, Chief?
Aye, sir.
Thank you.
Completely salt-free isn't healthy. After I had my heart attack, I had to cut way back on salt, but the doctor told me specifically don't cut it out completely. In the 60s, we didn't know that. Salt was considered a killer, especially if you had heart disease like me. But she has a different reason for going salt-free.
Captain, I'm impressed. My particular field is chemistry, and I've never seen any finer equipment.
The Admiral can take the bar for that.
Oh, well, I might have guessed. Would you think it rude if I asked to be left alone here for a little while? I do have some work to do.
Oh, not at all. See you at dinner?
I wouldn't miss it.
I hope she doesn't play poker because her face betrays everything she's thinking. And what she's thinking right now looks a little sinister. She throws a bunch of chemicals together. She's dosing the salt with something, hence the salt-free diet. Whatever she's putting in it, she doesn't want any.
Excuse me, Miss Sloan, you care for salt?
Oh, no, thank you. I never use it.
As I said, if anyone had been looking at her just then, they would have had some questions. Later, Admiral Nelson is called to the control room.
You see, Admiral, I was standing and watching the observation nose. I was looking out to the water when this far-out fish thing makes the scene.
What was it?
You'll think I'm putting you on, sir, but it's for real. It was a sea monster, sir.
I wouldn't scoff too quickly. Remember that enormous manta ray you found that time? The giant squids and octopuses you've encountered?
I see. Exactly what did this sea monster look like?
Well, sir, it was like way out. It was maybe 300 feet long.
Go on.
A long, thin body, like a snake. And a head. This is the part that'll bug you.
With a head like a dragon and big sharp teeth.
Riley is a surfer who speaks his own dialect, but he's not given to flights of fancy. There's just one problem with his story.
Anything from sonar, radar?
Negative.
Sonar says there was nothing there. Riley will go to sickbay and get checked out.
Captain, unidentified contact. Dead ahead.
What do you read?
Extremely large object. It's closing fast.
All stop.
Or not. Now it's getting weird because sonar says there's something huge out there and they can't see anything.
All back full.
All back full.
I think they liked it better when they thought there was nothing there. That thing is bigger than the Seaview and it's determined to grab the sub and find out what it is.
Skipper, no contact.
What?
Well, look for yourself, sir. Scope's clear.
Unless a gigantic sperm whale came along and snatched it up when nobody was looking, giant squid don't disappear like that. It's easy for us to tell she's dosed them with something that's making them hallucinate. The question is why? She asks for their help and then attacks them like this. It doesn't make sense. Several more such encounters with giant creatures that may or may not be there, and they're near the undersea lab.
That does it. We're raving mad.
You know, Lee, you may be right.
He suspects they have indeed been dosed. The question is how. Sharky checked all the supplies that were brought on board, and nobody will think to check into the big wild card they brought on board, who happens to be a chemist.
Admiral, I've been listening to all this very carefully, and I think you're 100% right. You'll notice as we approach the area of the undersea lab, the hallucinations grow stronger and more frequent.
You imply a connection.
Yes, I do. I suggest you contact Dr. Sterling. He'll verify my theory.
Now, I'm betting this stuff happens not long after they all eat. Nobody will make that connection either. Dr. Sterling backs her up on the hallucination thing, which means they can't trust their own eyes. They've reached the coordinates they were after, so Nelson and Kara will head to the lab in the flying sub. Kara's really pushing the hallucination idea and saying, come on, let's go, time's a-wasting. Sonar is showing several large contacts and they can see some enormous fish out the window, but of course they're not really there.
I know they aren't there, but they're starting to move away.
Funny thing, sonar is reporting the same, large objects moving away from them. Still, Nelson takes the flying sub through the big fish, through the sky for a while, and down to the lab without incident. Without incident, except that the closer they get to the lab and the fissure, the bigger the fish are getting. And it's pretty clear that these are very, very real.
Admiral Nelson.
When Liam Sullivan decided he wanted to be a big star, I don't think that's what he had in mind. We've seen this veteran character actor in Misfits of Science, Honey West, Lost in Space, and I don't doubt we'll see him in other things in the future. One of his best-known roles was Parman the Philosopher on the original Star Trek. Right now, I think he may have a slight hormone imbalance.
Tell me, this is hallucination.
Now you know what has been happening.
I caused the visions and hallucinogen in your salt supply.
Why?
So that when you saw the real giant fish, you'd just accept him as another vision.
Then our sonar was accurate all the time.
That is one of the stupidest plans I've heard all year, but we're only 4 days into the year. Somebody has plenty of time to come up with a stupider one. Something coming from that fissure makes things grow to gargantuan size, including him because he spent a lot of time out there in the water studying things. I'm not sure how he can even get out now.
Well, I'll do everything I can to help, of course, but first of all, I've got to try to seal up that fissure. I'm calling Seaview.
No! You must not order your submarine to close off the fissure.
Don't you understand? This is the discovery of an age. He was afraid that's what you'd do. That's why he sent me to get you without telling you too much detail.
You did a fine job of that. Sorry. I'll help you try to reverse the growth process, but only after we've eliminated the cause.
Talk about someone who doesn't get it. He's still growing. At this rate, within hours, he'll be so squunched up in that place he won't be able to breathe and he'll die. He seems to think his fissure is more important than that. Nelson disagrees.
I won't let you do it.
I'm sorry, Tony.
Admiral, don't.
Get away from there!
And he'll keep disagreeing once he wakes up. Neither of these two seems to grasp that whatever is making him grow is also making him violent like that. It's taking his mind away. Meanwhile, the Seaview crew still thinks their minds are wackadoodle, even though sonar is showing very large contacts all around them. Right now, they're playing tag with that sawfish.
Rig for collision.
Guess what? They're real. And by the way, you're it.
Where is he? Where is he?
He's gone.
Gone.
After he hit you, he started to get worse. Oh, he was growing larger and larger right before my eyes. It was a horrible thing to see.
She's too hysterical to tell him anything. Women in science, they're telling you. The communication gear is trashed. He has to get to the flying sub and contact the Seaview.
It's no use. Let's get out of here. Oh, come on. You're coming with me or I have to carry you. Pass these up to me. I'll open the hatch.
You'll be sorry you didn't make her go first. He can't say I didn't warn him. She thinks if she stays there, she can find a way to help Dr. Sterling. Again, she's hysterical. It's obvious she's in love with him and is completely irrational over what's happened to him. By the way, what has happened to him? Oh, again, I'd like to know how he got out of that little facility, but I suppose it's just as well for him and Kara that he found a way. Now he's got his eye on the Seaview. They have all their torpedoes ready to fire, but nobody can believe the size of the thing they're seeing on sonar.
Skipper!
Okay, now they believe it. I believe everything but the teeth. They don't make sense. His expression says there's nobody human in there anymore. He's a creature of pure rage.
Bar one.
If you shoot him, you just make him mad.
That's about the size of it. Torpedoes are ineffective. And he's saying, now it's my turn. If you ever wondered how big the model of the Seaview is, there's your answer. He has it in a tight grip and there's nothing they can do but ride this out. Admiral Nelson is trying to give them an idea, but there's no telling whether he's getting through on the radio or not.
Lee, bring the reactors up, give them a full charge. Fast!
Sure, Admiral, we'll get right on that as soon as we're right side up for 3 seconds.
Reactors up full. Send a charge through the hull.
Okay, maybe they did hear him, or else great minds think alike. They'll scram on out of there and get ready to pick up the Admiral. What about Sterling? I think Kara got her wish. She'll stay down here with him forever. In the end, he fell into his own precious fissure. The Seaview will seal it up, and that's the end of that adventure. The giant critters will live out their days, but any progeny they produce will be normal size. So in the end, it was all for nothing. Oh, it did have one lasting effect.
Lee, would you pass us all?
You want to live dangerously?
Second thought, forget it.
Yeah, they're all going to be using pepper for a while.
I'm breathing underwater, I'm weightless through space. I'm soaring like an eagle all over this place. Creatures most will never see are waiting there to look at me, and all I gotta do is breathe underwater.
You're a fassing pish. Then he'll lose, window. But of course I can't say that right. Without incident. Now what?